Ecuador, but living in the United States, and an accepted student at Harvard University. Welcome, Agustín. Feel free to get started.
Thank you so much for this opportunity again. It's so amazing. So hi everyone, my name is Agustín León-Sáenz. As I mentioned, and as you may have known, I am an Ecuadorian immigrant born in Quito, Ecuador, but currently living in Albuquerque, New Mexico in the United States. And I've lived in the United States since approximately 2010. So I am a very passionate student. I personally really love school. And so for me, the importance of going to YYGS was really big. I felt like it was an opportunity to connect with like-minded peers who were also really excited to get prepared to go to college and dive deep into their studies. And so I attended the 2019 Applied Science and Engineering session. And that was definitely a really cool opportunity where I got to meet a lot of different people, including Isadora, who's a very close friend now. But that obviously was a very enlightening experience for me. And so I definitely recommend to all the viewers right now to please apply to YYGS in whatever area interests you. I think it's really important to give you a glimpse into what college is going to be like in the United States. And now moving on to GPA, extracurriculars, and honors. My GPA and my grades were practically the same when I applied to YYGS and when I applied to Harvard. And so I graduated with a 4.0 out of a 4.0, so all A's in high school. And same when I applied to YYGS, and I actually graduated as my high school's salutatorian. And that was really exciting. And then extracurriculars, they kind of differed a little bit between the time I applied to YYGS and applied to Harvard, but I did keep the same themes mostly. And so when I applied to YYGS, I had a big focus on STEM. And so science competitions, engineering work, and all of that, I was very involved both in the university doing research as a research assistant, and in other ways too, like leading a STEM club at my school. And during this senior year of high school, my last year of high school before I got into Harvard, I did get very into being involved in the community. And so I felt like that was a really important part of my application for Harvard specifically. And then for honors, as I mentioned before, I'm a really big person on science competitions and engineering. And then I was also recognized often as a scholar at my school. And so I got recognitions like the National Merit Scholar and the National Hispanic Scholar, and that was really important to me. And for essays and interviews, for both of them, I really reflected a lot on my identity as an Ecuadorian immigrant. I felt like that was really important to me and to explore that. But I also talked about the different facets of my application, kind of like what Temi was talking about earlier, but I talked about how, for example, in YYGS specifically, I was super interested in environmental science and engineering, just because it offers the opportunity to create solutions for a lot of the problems our society is currently facing now. And that to me was really inspiring, because going to university, like at Yale or at Harvard, it gives you the opportunity to be able to be at the forefront, of these types of fights. And to touch a little bit on my personal parts too, I kept it very personal as well, my immigration story. I may have mentioned this earlier, but I see some people are putting in the chat. So I'm specifically from Quito, the capital of Ecuador. But I only lived there for a few years up until talked a little bit about how my personal experience, the way my narrative specifically, as you see the quote on there, was very different when it came to the United States. And so I took it upon myself, especially in my Harvard application, to reclaim my narrative and to write about how I wanted to defy stereotypes and what I'm doing now. And as others talked about earlier, there wasn't necessarily an interview that I did for YYGS. I don't know how they're doing it now, but I did have an interview for Harvard. And so obviously I applied during the COVID-19 pandemic and it was virtually, but I do feel like that expanded the opportunities that we had to interview with other people. My interviewer was a graduate of Harvard from, I believe, like the 1990s or something like that, 1980s, but she's a very prominent doctor in my state. And so that was definitely a really cool opportunity. And so I definitely encourage all of you to take those interviews and appreciate them, because they're really cool opportunities to connect with alumni from a lot of different schools.
Wow, that's really great. And before we finish here, why did you choose Harvard, and why do you think they chose?
Thank you so much. And so again, that's a little bit of a hard question for the second one, but I personally chose Harvard just because I felt like it was such an amazing fit. I think through all of this process, it's really, really, really important to keep in mind fit. And so what's going to be the best for me is not going to be the best for you necessarily. And it's not, especially like when it gets to like these, you know, like elite universities like the Ivy League and Stanford and others, it's not about necessarily the prestige of where you're going. It's about who you see yourself as going to these universities and whether you'd be happy. And so I personally, you know, am elated to go to Harvard, and it's really exciting just because I feel like there's so many opportunities that I want to dive into. I don't have to limit myself necessarily to any specific thing. And I believe Harvard chose me because I am very passionate about what I do, and I don't necessarily like to put like boundaries or put myself in a box, if that makes sense. If there's something I'm interested in, I'm a go-getter and I like to reach for the stars, and I definitely feel like I'm the type of person that if I put my mind to something, I can do it. And so definitely, like Demi said earlier, I was very myself in my application, and that was really important.